I'm going to be replacing the valve guide seals on this 1992 Crown Victoria with a 4.6 overhead cam motor. And so the first thing I've done is with air nozzle just blown off all this area and stuff just to keep anything from falling down inside, and then got to remove the ventilation here and take out all the spark plugs. You don't have to do that necessarily, but it just makes for easier access, and basically just remove whatever is necessary to get access to pull the valve cover off. And one thing to consider doing is if you don't have the attachments that's going to make it obvious which wire goes where, it's not a bad idea to put some painter's tape or something on it and mark like 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that, so you can just remember which plug wire goes where. And so going to get that all cleaned up. There's a couple self-explanatory things to take off and then pull the valve cover. Okay, so I'm kind of progressing along here, but just wanted to show a few things. So once you've loosened off the valve cover, to get it off on the passenger side, kind of have to force these two lines here. I think they're just electrical wires in the bundle. Kind of have to force those out of the way, and it's a bit of a finagle to get the valve cover off. Same with here, you have to undo enough of the anchor points and then unclip the some connections down low, but you'll kind of see what you may or may not need to do depending on your car configuration, but to get that off. Then once I got that off, no matter how careful you are, there's probably going to be some dirt that gets down in here. So I went through with a flashlight and just tried to carefully clean it with a some sort of rag. You don't want to use the lint because it'll come apart and get inside. And then all the oil drain back holes should be plugged off somehow, just in case you drop something down. Well, to keep you from dropping something down, actually, I should say. There's a procedure where you can actually take off the cam to do this, but I'm kind of going off of the Haynes manual, so I'm going to just do it with the tool, which I'll show in a second. The valve cover here, my engine has a lot of gack in it just from all the years, so I'm going to clean this off a little bit. And one thing I noticed is when I tried to put the gasket back on, it seemed way too big, but if you work with it, it will fit in, even though at first glance it seems like it's maybe stretched or something. But basically what you have to do is get it around the sides and then just work it, and it's kind of hard to describe, but if you have enough patience with it, you'll get it to work. And if it absolutely will not, you'll have to get a new one perhaps. But mine, I was like, there's no way this is going to fit. But it did end up fitting, even though it seemed like it was maybe like an inch too long at first. You just kind of got to even out the side here as you put it in. So this is the tool, the 2-piece. Basically how this works, I'm just on number 1 here. Okay, let me back up. So what you have to do is it's crucial that you get your piston to top dead center. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the compression stroke, but if you're going to try to pressurize the chamber, it needs to be on the compression stroke, which I thought I was, because I checked it, but it's still not. It's not holding the valve up completely. You can hear it presumably hitting the top of the piston there. Anyways, I'm not sure. I thought I was on the compression stroke because I put a vacuum gauge on it, which you may want to pick up. They're not that expensive. But what you can do is you screw it into your spark plug hole, whichever cylinder you're working on, and you rotate the crankshaft with the breaker bar until you start to see pressure, a little bit of pressure rise, and then that's telling you that the intake valve is closing. And anyways, I'm not sure. Maybe I got a false reading on that, and maybe it was just giving me a false reading. But anyways, I don't seem to be on the compression stroke, but I'm putting forced air through, and it's also not leaking out, so I'm a little confused what's happening. There's probably something very simple that I'm overlooking, but regardless, at any rate, it is an absolute must that you have to have your piston at top dead center. Compression or exhaust stroke, I suppose it doesn't really matter, because even if it's not pressurized, what I can do is, and I did pick some up, just to show you this stuff here, nylon rope they talk about in the manual if you don't have like an air compressor or something. And well, they say nylon, but this nylon rope is actually a bit softer. I think what they meant by nylon is something more like this. Anyways, it's rigid enough that you could jam it and force a bunch of it into your hole to essentially hold up the, and I think they tell you to put it in as you're coming up to your, so as you feel the piston rising, jam that stuff in there and then finish off your stroke. But anyways, regardless, that can be jammed in there to help aid in holding that up, but make sure that your piston's top dead center. Basically, what you do is take off your spark plug, get your breaker bar. This is, I believe, a 18 mil. I think so. Yeah, 18 mil. Get it on there with a breaker bar, a ratcheting breaker bar, preferably. This is just a torque wrench, but it will serve my purposes. And then you want to be very careful not to jam this or gall the piston. Something like a super long straw, a plastic straw would probably be really good. A piece of wood, maybe not wood so it doesn't break off, but something that's not going to accidentally break off in there. I'm using this magnetic handle, and what you do is you put it down, make sure you're coming through as you think you're on the compression stroke, and you'll hold it very gently, and you'll feel it very subtly move up. And then when it stops moving and it starts to go back down, right before it starts to go back down, that's top dead center essentially. So that's how you can find that out. And then even if when you do take off everything, your valve won't drop in. But if you're not, as far as I know, your valve will drop and you'll be needing to pull your whole cylinder head off. And for the tool here, I'll show you in a second when I get to the other one, but it's a two-part system. Basically, this part hooks onto the camshaft, and this part sits on top of the valve. When you pop it off, your rocker arm here, you want to make sure that you just look it over. Your keepers, don't lose those, don't drop those down the oil drain back holes. And then your spring, just maintain the orientation that it came in, with your washer up top here. And then here is the tool. I bought this off of Summit Racing. I think, where is it? I think this is the part number 24434, but this is specifically for the Ford modular engines, 4.654 and the V10. I'm not sure if it works on the dual cams, but it's specifically for the works for the single overhead cam. Then these are the particular valve guide seals that are working for my engine. So if you go on like Rock Auto or something, you're probably going to see different listings that are completely different shape and stuff. I wasn't sure which one I had, and I couldn't really find out how to find that out other than just like, taking it apart. But I wanted to have stuff ready to go, so I bought the two sets. I know I don't have a police interceptor, so I could rule that one out because that was one option. But then the other common options, it seemed like there was two different options basically. And this is the part number that is correct for my car. So I think that's S11OV20. And comparing them here, you can see basically the main difference is how it bottlenecks here. So I'm just gonna, double check, but I'm 99% sure these are the correct ones because it matches. Whereas the other ones was quite obviously different. You can see how large that hole is compared to this one. I know the car is burning oil. Now today, I pulled my plugs once again, and they're definitely not oily. In fact, I think what I have, I think I have a lean condition with this car, which I could get into in another video. But anyways, despite that, I'm still burning a lot of oil, and I'm getting blue smoke out the tailpipe occasionally, or quite frequently. So this, to me, is the obvious place to start. It seems that that's what most guys say. If it turns out to be like piston rings or something, or something in the cylinder, then that obviously warrants a motor rebuild. But I'm going to start with this. So that being said, just you could pull your spark plugs, and if they're not like oily, this might not be, you know, it's obviously could contribute to it, but it might not be the exclusive reason why you're burning oil. So anyways, I'm gonna get this one back in and go from there. All right, so the rope did not really work to shove down into the spark plug hole, but after struggling for a while, I thought I'd give this a try. So got my wrench situated, the extension, pulled it down where, you know, as far as it can go, then tied it up with rope. It's kind of hard to do by yourself, but I think this is going to be the secret sauce for me, because that frees up both of my hands, and it gets quite tiring holding the spring in place while you're trying to mess with the little keepers down there. Got him in. Now remember, put him skinny side down, right, tapered side down, and use some grease to utilize it. Even screwdrivers that are magnetic will still pick up the keepers, but the problem is getting them off. So if you can coat the inside of the keeper with some sticky grease and then stick it on there, and then you got to have it maxed all the way out to be able to get this on. And holding it like this, it frees up the hands if you need to get some pliers in there to pull up the valve a little bit. But anyways, that's helping quite a bit. This part hooks under the not the journal, or actually I don't know this official term. I don't know if you call this part the journal, or yeah, I guess that'd be the journal. But that's, the journal refers to a crankshaft, so I'm not sure what you call that on the crankshaft. But anyways, the bar, you know, the lower part of the cam here. Then the bottom one goes right on top of the spring washer. You'll see you want to get it in nice and far so you can see the two tangs on the upper part hook right around here. You want to see it hook around, otherwise it will slip off on you. I know it's hard to get a shot in here, but basically start with your ratchet as close to here as possible, so you get the most pry out of it, if that makes sense. Just watch your fingers. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it down, and then pull the rocker arm, drop the rocker arm off to the side. It'll come out, and then I can release that temporarily just to assess things. There, got him. Boom. Installation's a little different, easier, because I found the new seal is strong enough to actually hold the valve up in place. But a lot of this, I've watched videos, a lot of it is hard to understand fully until you actually do the dive into it yourself. But here's the main thing with the keepers is, obviously they need to be tapered down like this to create a wedge effect. And it might be hard to see on camera, but you see it's thicker at one side. Anyways, it's very hard to tell that when you're putting them in place. So you got to pay extra close attention to make sure you're getting those in, because even it's possible that it could just like jam in there, and it will, you know, so the valve spring won't pop off, won't blow out, but it's going to wreck your engine. So just, I mean, at some point you just got to do the best you can and hope and pray that it'll be okay. But so now that I got that, I can, taking it apart is easy. It's getting it back on. So I take all my tools out. A moment here, I can't remember what these are called. They'd be called your lifters, I guess, on a pushrod engine, but on this kind of engine, I'm not sure what they are. They might still be called a lifter. Anyways, I'm not sure what these are called on an overhead cam engine, but anyways, there's one video I watched where there's supposed to be like a way to check these while you're at it. It's pumping oil, so I think these pressurize. But anyways, there's supposed to be like some way to tell like how much movement it has or something. I guess I'll check them, but I'm gonna just hope for the best that they're fine, because I kind of need to get this wrapped up. And this car is fairly low miles, so but there's that. So something to consider if you have high mileage. You might want to look up the specs for this. And then I'm just gonna coat it in some oil and slip it back into the bore there. All right, so it's a couple days later. On the other day when I was working on this second one, where the video left off last time, somehow, despite having the rag down there, I think I got one down the oil drain back hole. It's kind of a long story, but anyways, I think it fell down there. But regardless, I did a little bit of digging, and those holes should be more or less a straight shot to the oil pan. So I'm not gonna tear apart my oil pan. It's a fairly extensive job to get the oil pan out on this car. So I'm just gonna let it go. But anyways, that being said, I had to source some new keepers. So I got a stack here. I went to the junkyard. They actually had a 1996 Crown Victoria, and I took some out, compared them with the one that I still had, and they are the same. So it's probably safe to say that at least up until 1996, that all of these 4.6s should, well, not all of them, but the basic ones. I think there's a high likelihood that some of the higher performance ones maybe would have different valve size and therefore different valve stems, but I don't know that. But anyways, what I do know is that the standard, what appears to be the standard 4.6 has the same valve size. So those are off of a 96. You can find them, Rock Auto has a listing for the 1992. It's a melling part. Now, whether or not they're the correct ones is another story, because sometimes online it's hard to, hard to find exactly what it is until you order it. And that being said, they're not that expensive. So just be prepared. I guess it might not be a bad idea, just when you're ordering your seals, it might not be a bad idea just to also order some keepers, just in case you drop one and you're not pulling your hair out trying to find it or something. And they're only like $1 a piece or whatever, or like $1 for a set of 2, I think. But anyways, then a couple other things by necessity. I went and picked up I had a magnet like this, but this one's smaller, and it has a swivel head. So this head here is about like half the size of the one I was using earlier in the video, and this is hugely more helpful to remove them, and also it was small enough so I was able to. I put this down. I bought this so I could put it down the drain back hole to hopefully pick up that keeper. It didn't work, so I don't know. Either it fell down in the hole or it fell somewhere I can't find. Then the other thing is while I was out, I picked up these. So some long access vice grips basically. So those should help in the tighter spots. The other thing I picked up, they're not as slender as I was hoping, but these should help in getting the keepers in place. Because what I found doing it with a screwdriver, when you have them just dangling, and like as you're putting it in place, just with like the magnetic, even with the grease there, they want to like twirl around, and it's hard to get them. You can get them on, but it's hard to get them situated. They want to spin around, except for that on the screwdriver. So I'm going to try it with pliers. But anyways, I'm going to finish. I'm still on number 2. So the first cylinder number 2 valve here. So I'm going to finish this one off, and then I'm going to try to actually, now that I've kind of explained everything, I'm going to try to situate the camera so I can actually do a full, do in one shot, do the whole valve. seal on one of them. And then I'll probably end the video there. All right, this seems to be the best shot I can get working by myself here. So I got 1 and 2 done. I'm now on cylinder number 2. So I removed the spark plug here and brought the piston up to top dead center. I'm not sure what stroke it's on. But the more I think about it, actually, the way I'm doing it, I think would be better without compressed air, because it allows me to push the piston down to seat the, it allows me to push the valve down to seat the keepers. So hopefully you can see what's going on here. But so it should slip around nice and far like that. And then you can see just down at the bottom where the valve's hitting. So I'm going to get the tool basically as close to the head as possible. Okay. Now, obviously you want to watch your fingers. You can see at a certain point, it is possible for the bottom part to catch on the shaft. But then I can just rotate this off to the side like that. Okay. Now what I wanted to show you here, and what I wasn't sure about myself until I did the last one, I tested it, but it is normal. Those keepers are supposed to kind of disappear into the spring of the head, or the washer there. I thought they protruded a bit, but if they're protruding, it's probably not seated correctly. Well, it's not seated correctly, because you can tell on this one, which we have not disturbed. Anyways, but what is possible is sometimes these two tongs will get caught on those keepers a little bit, but this is what it should be doing, like this. And you can see it's something slightly catching. Anyways, so got my wrench here. Having a second hand could be helpful, but the problem is there's so little room in here. I think doing it this way with the rope is probably the best as far as trying to do it by yourself. But yeah, it's once you get this together, you can't really see the top of it. So that's why it's important to, what I'm going to show in a bit, to be able to push the valve back down once you get the new keeper, or back together. But I'll show you that in a second. Because I did the first one, and then I started to think about it, and I was like, I'm looking at it right now and it looks fine, but once you get the rocker arm back on, you can't really see anything. And also I looked at another video, and these are, I think, called, they're not, the name for them on a overhead cam engine is the lash adjuster. So it's not a lifter, because it's not really, it doesn't contact. I think it's exclusively just to fill with oil to pressurize itself. But anyways, and to adjust the lash on the rockers. But I don't know that for sure, but judging by the name, I assume that's what it is. All right, anyway, so I'm gonna pull this down basically as far as I can. So I'm gonna get this bar situation thing on, and I'm not sure if that's enough. The problem is, if you take off tension off of your tool, you got to keep, you can see my thumb, I'm pushing down on, see, and even just that, it came off. So it's you got to kind of keep tension on it, otherwise it'll come off on you. Okay, let's try that again. But anyways, now you can see kind of how so I'm gonna get my wrench in, get the tool up around the cam all the way like that, and I'm holding the two pieces together. I'm gonna get my ratchet. You can kind of play around with it a little bit, but basically get it as close to the head as possible. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, so I got my string, I know you can't see it, but I got my string looped around my spoke on my tire. So I'm holding tension, and then I just bring the other end up And I mean, if you had a second set of hands, you could get somebody else to do this for you. But I just loop it around the top end here several times, just kind of create like a friction tension, and that should hold itself in place, hopefully. Okay, so now that I got those, the hard part is just, well, one of the hard parts is just making sure you got the valve open, drop down enough. But I'll show you something else real quickly. So if it doesn't seem like it is, and I know this might blur, put the camera out of focus. Just want to make sure that these are clean. Now, obviously you want to be careful how you do this. There we go. So you saw I pulled that up. So you want to be careful how you do this. Nothing is riding there. So if you grab at the top end there, you just don't want to mar the very top of it, because there's a bevel surface. And I apologize if that's going out of focus a little bit, but. So now that allows me to grab my keepers, both of them. Just gonna set those to the side. And now, and actually I didn't need to really put my bar on now because that's for later. But anyways, so I'm gonna loosen off my rope again. I have a little bit more than I needed, but okay. So now I can, obviously you want to do all this like slowly. Okay, so now pressure's off for the spring. I'm gonna remove my tools. And obviously this is the easy part here. Keep your spring in order the way it came. Try to keep it clean. And then I'm gonna try out these new hard to reach pliers. Let's try that. I don't even know if these are gonna be quite right. But so again, I need to tighten those up. Again, try not to mar the shaft, obviously. Just like that. So grab it, and you can see, I was gonna get into this a little bit later in the video, but you know, this is at your discretion of whether or not it's worth the hassle to do this or just to let it burn oil. Because you can see it still is like, you know, it's still contacting the shaft, it's just obviously loose. And it's just, there's so many people who talk about this being a problem. So I guess only time will tell if it solves the oil burning issue. The whole reason I'm not so concerned about burning oil, it is kind of, you know, you got to be careful, because if you're burning a lot of oil and you forget to top it up, you could run your engine dry in extreme cases. And there's been some times when I've forgotten to do that for a while, and you know, checked my oil level and it was, you know, not even registering on the dipstick. So something to keep in mind. But I would say, investing in the right tools, like the pliers, you know, which aren't that expensive. The tool, I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't outrageous, at least for me. And anyways, just got that out. If there's no oil on the shaft there, it'd probably be good to coat this with oil, just so it has some lubrication right off the bat. So the thing we want to watch for is not to mar the top of this, because this does actually ride on the backside of the rocker arm. So I'm going to slip this over. Keep an eye on this spring. If the spring pops off here, that's you have to tear it off and put a new one on, because that's very, very crucial to the sealing. If that spring goes, it's no bueno. So without the tool there, you actually have a bit of room. I'm not quite seated there, I don't think. There we go. So the crucial, it's crucial to make sure you're at top dead center. However, apparently you can do it without being at top dead center, but then you have to like mess with, you know, if this slips down, then you got to try to take your thing out and pull up with pliers. So it's just, it doesn't take that long. If you're trying to find it on the compression stroke, it will take longer to find it, but finding top dead center comes pretty quickly. It's easy enough. Okay, so that's that. Now, obviously get my spring back on. I'm gonna grab my tool. Don't think I'm forgetting anything. You can kind of see I slip around. And then you kind of work it in the ratcheting motion until you get it where it needs to go. See, and it's harder getting it back in, I found. Obviously disassembly is typically always easier, but oops, don't do that. Okay, what am I catching on there? Just want to be careful because I feel like I'm catching on something there. Okay, well, I'm going to try this position here. There we go. There we go. Yeah, I was catching on something, not sure what. Okay, so I'm going to do my spiel again with the string. Pull it up and just find some way to get it secured, but also easy to remove. So you're not fighting with it on the returns side. Okay, so now that's almost low enough, but let's see if I can get this valve up. There we go. Okay, now comes the fun part. So I'm going to clean some of the loose oil off of it, I think it helps make the grease stick on a little better. I'm going to get a pretty decent helping of grease, like that. Just remember, skinny side down, tapered side down. Here's where I found the pliers come in. So I grab it like that. Get it seated. Pliers are definitely a must, I think, for this. Now, I have very large hands, but depending on which one you're working on. Okay, so then rotate it around. I know it kind of went out, the camera went out of focus there, but I was able to fit my gorilla hands in there. So depending on which one you're working on, you may be able to fit your hands in there. This would be one job where having smaller hands would be ideal. But yeah, don't be shy with the grease, but you don't want too much. You want to still be able to tell which is which side's which. Okay, and here comes number 2. So I can kind of drop it onto the shaft. Now, it is important to somehow still verify that they're in the keys properly, that they're in the grooves. Because if they're not, I'm not sure if it would indicate. Meaning that when you release it, it could possibly be like 1 notch too high or too low maybe. And you wouldn't know. So, but I found like you can kind of tell if it's riding up. I think I'm making it more complicated than it needs to be, but it's possible that you could have it in the wrong notch, or like 1 notch too high, 1 notch too low, and that it would still kind of wedge. That being said, though, I don't think it would wedge up all the way. So if the keepers are not receding into the spring like it was when you took it off, you may have done something wrong. So now, here's the really important part that I kind of discovered. So, and this is where not having your cylinder filled with air would help. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, and my tool is rotated off to the side. I'm going to try to carefully get it over. Do you see that? Because I know my keepers probably won't go past that, but they might now. So that's something to keep in mind, I guess. Okay. So what I've done there is I've moved it down, and that'll make it a little bit less likely for them to slip off. Now, you could try to do this all in one swell swoop and put your rocker on straight away and drop it down, but I think it's probably best to release it, because it doesn't take, unless if your cam lobe's just in like the completely wrong spot, it doesn't take much to actually slip the rocker back on. So what I would prefer for myself is just to make sure that so I want to release it now and make sure that those keepers are in the right position, because I feel like once you seat them, it takes you have to push down the spring a lot to move it. Okay, we're good. Okay, so now that I've seated it, I can go straight into, obviously there is a danger of getting your fingers pinched in here pretty good, but you kind of got to like roll it off to the side. This one, the cam lobe is not in an ideal position. So what I might do, it's obviously brought the, I moved my light. It's obviously brought the valve up a little bit with releasing it like that. So I'm going to push it down. And having all these tools at your arm's reach is very crucial. Let's see if I can get this on now. I know it's kind of blocking the view when I do it like this. Let's try this. And obviously just keep in mind the orientation that it goes in. So this one, the cam lobe's obviously a little bit more in the way, so I'm going to compress this more. Now the valve will only go down so far before it hits the piston. So like right there I'm maxed out, so I've got to make it work somehow. I know it came off. It's got to go back on. There we go. There. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Let me get my light in there. So obviously this guy is riding on here, and then that guy kind of self-situates itself, I think. Like there's not really much you can do other than just kind of, you can feel around once it's in place. Got some paint on there. Just to verify everything seems pretty tickety-boo. Then one nice thing is, as you're going through your rotation, trying to get to top dead center, I would think that anything obvious would probably show itself, like you'd hear something slip off, or a spring pop loose or something. But don't want to move that. Okay. So to the best of my knowledge, they're on there correctly. But yeah, so that's it. I'm gonna just, I've got 4 down, 6 to go. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry, no, I got 3 down. Anyway, so that's it. So I'd say the biggest, there's other video, or a video in particular I'm thinking of, that would probably come up because it's probably the most popular. It's very helpful, but I found personally, having the extension that you can slip on and off your wrench easily with the rope tied to one end. So I have it like permanently tied to one end, and then I just have one loose end that I tethered around my rim, and then I use that to hold it in place. The grease, obviously, and those long slender pliers. So these are like, these are slender, but they're actually still even on the larger side. So something smaller, but these are like probably like about a foot long. And then having some long, slender vice grips. And tools, obviously you need to have the compressor tool, and probably worth your while when you're ordering this. Now, mind you, if you get these are hard to find. I phoned like a bunch of parts stores and nobody had these. Like I said, Rock Auto did have a listing, and I think you might be able to find them on some racing and a few places like that. But anyways, that should be it. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish this off, install my valve cover, kind of reversal of removal, just make sure everything's, you know, as best as possible, nothing's falling down into the cylinders. I'm gonna back this out. And just light torque on these screws. You don't want to overdo them because you'll mush out your gasket. And then just fire it up. Check for any weird noises. Anything that's wrong should show itself pretty quickly. But obviously, at that point, it's almost too late in a way. But so yeah, just, you know, the thing, it becomes easier as you go, but you just got to kind of familiarize yourself with everything. And those tools are I would say kind of imperative to have. And then from there, it's just the other side. So this is turning into, with everything, with losing the keepers, having to go to the junkyard, it's turning into like a 2-day job. But I think after, certainly after doing one side, it would go a lot quicker. But hopefully this video was helpful and it will save you pulling out your hair, and it's doable. It's not that bad, but it's just, again, having the right setup, I think, is what's going to save the day. All right, so a few closing thoughts here. One thing is, there's going to be a few things here or there that I missed. One of them is this wiring harness here actually attaches to the head. So by the time you get to number 3, that's going to be in the way with your socket, your ratchet. So you'll have to remove that. It's just an 8mm bolt right there. You can partially undo it right there and then slip it out. The other thing also is, I found out it's actually a little easier, in my opinion, to not have the piston quite at top dead center, to have it a little bit below, because that will actually allow me with the screwdriver to shove the valve and the keepers all the way down. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. And how I figured that out is because I got this guy to top dead center, but it might have been on the wrong stroke. But anyways, at top dead center on number 3 here, this cam lobe was in a position where I could not, with the spring compressed, I could not fit the rocker off. So then I had to bring it up a little bit, because this cam, the high part on the lobe was too far down, so I couldn't slip this off. So you might have to tweak around with it a little bit to get it, but yeah, so either top dead center or a little bit below. It still is not going to slip in, but I did find it actually allowed me to push that all the way in to get the keeper seated right off the bat. So anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.